So what is a personal brand? Some people think that what they think of themselves, that is their personal brand. If I think I'm smart, I'm intelligent, I'm really a progressive person, I believe that all other people feel the same way. And reality could be very different. In a very rare situation, it is possible that your perception about yourself may be the same as other people perceive you, which means that you have a high level of awareness. But in majority of the cases, people have a very different view of themselves than what other people have. And there is one tool which is used by many companies for this exercise called the 360-degree evaluation, where you make an assessment about your own image and performance, and then you ask few close people like 6, 7, 8 people around you who observe you closely or work closely with you to give their opinion on the same questionnaire. And results are quite drastically different many times. One thing is very clear, that we have our blind spots. Blind spots are the shortcomings or negative things about us. We cannot see that, and only other people could see that. But also sometimes there is some bias involved, and other people having the bias may give you a negative opinion about you. So in an ideal scenario, your personal brand is a combination of your own perception as well as the perception by other. And personal brand is basically just a perception. So it's a perceived image. It may not be real image. It is a perceived image. As the people, as they see and they perceive you, it could be different than reality. And many people try to create or portray a sort of personal brand, which is not their reality, but they thought that they should be able to create a perception about themselves, which would help them and reward them in their career or in their life. I'm not going to teach you or propagate you the traditional way the personal branding is advised. I'm going to give you a different, slightly different, not much different, slightly different point of view from an authentic leadership point of view. Because if you are in a middle level position, you can survive whatever tactics you use. But if you really have the ambition to climb up to the corporate ladder and reach to the C level demands authentic leadership. And authentic leadership is quite different than the type of the leadership you could exercise at the lower levels. So this is what people try to do. They try to create an image which is different than their real image. And sometimes it works. As I said, that the junior level until mid-level positions, it may work. But when you reach to the top level, a serious higher level of authority and leadership, it doesn't work. So a typical advice, if you search Google or you Google the advice for the personal brand, this is what people say. So I just picked it up, typical advice for the successful personal brand. That's the headline. And it says, if you start from the reading on the left side, choose your niche. Niche means that what area you want to specialize, define your audience, who the people you want to talk to, write an elevator pitch, grow your online presence. All things look good, but just pay attention. These are all external things we are trying to impose on ourselves. There is nothing internal, all external pressures or demands. Create value for your audience, work with influence in your niche, embrace networking, learn, use social media wisely, embody your brand daily. So this approach I call outside in. You look at the outside and you say that what really makes me align with the external environment, and then you try to create those things. You impose on yourself those things, and most of the time you are, even if you are able to successfully create a brand, it's temporary. It's not, doesn't last, because this is not the real you. This is not natural. You create these tactics for a certain period of time, and then you either change your brand or you lose your brand as you have created. So as I said, I call it two approaches. Outside in, this slide I just showed you, this is a sort of outside in approach, that you try to meet the demand of outside environment, which works in certain cases. But what we are going to talk in this webinar is inside out, who you are. What is your brand from inside out? It starts all with you, with your identity, who you are. and then you try to create alignment with the external environment. So pay attention here. So this is a great quote which says the greatest way to live with honor in this world is to be what we pretend to be. So if we believe that there is a personal brand, imaginary, which could make us successful, why don't we become that brand naturally, realistically? So it starts with you, as I said. It starts with authentic you, who you are. You need to define yourself. Some of you might have done that exercise, many of you may not have. But what is your identity? To yourself, not to the world, starting with yourself. What is your identity? Who you are? What is the purpose of your life? What are your values? What are your beliefs? It all starts from these fundamental thoughts you create in your mind. This is a very powerful process, by the way. So as I said, that many of you might have not done it, but when you do it, you get a lot of clarity, a lot of empowerment by defining, by identifying your values, because these becomes your guideline for the life. That removes confusion and gray area from your life. If you know your identity, who you are to your core, if you understand what your beliefs are, what things you believe, what you don't believe, what are your values? Values are the guidelines to your life, what you can do, what you don't want to do. What is the purpose of your life in the long term? That creates a lot of clarity. And that empowers you to make moves in your life very fast or very clearly. Many people try to inspire the world. So personal brand, it comes to the personal branding, as I said, they think they need to impress the world. They need to inspire other people with their leadership. Now, before you go into that mood of really trying to impress the world or try to inspire them, get inspired yourself first. What are your heroes? What are your role models? And this is a very powerful idea, that you identify some role models. And role models not necessarily in your present life or in your current environment. Role model could be the people in the past history, but they are very powerful leaders. Now, in previous times mean like 20, 30, 40 years ago, it was very difficult to really study and observe the life of many people, many heroes, or many role models. Today, it's very easy. You go to the YouTube and you can basically study the whole life of different people. So those hero or role models need not to be in your present life or in your current environment. They could be in the past, they could be alive, but in a different part of the world. You have a lot of access to their information through videos, through written material, through books, through a lot of other means. So study those role models. Now, the benefit of the role model is that if you are really inspired, that's very important. Don't try to create a fake inspiration. If you are really inspired from your heart, then it would become very easy to observe them, look at them, and copy them. So you get a lot of clarity. For example, my role models, there are a few people. On the business side, Steve Jobs. Now, I never met Steve Jobs, but I have studied his whole life through a couple of movies, books, other material. And there are aspects of his life I could copy very well. In fact, I do. Then on the political side, Barack Obama is my role model or hero. His life is also very transparent, and I can learn from that. So, does not start with creating or worry about inspiring the world with your personality or your presence. You start with getting inspired first, and that would create enough charisma in you that other people started to look at you and get inspiration. Also, so not only that you try to identify your identity and your values and belief, what are your philosophies of life? What are your fundamental beliefs? Not dictated by the environment, but by yourself, by your life experiences. What do you believe is the right thing? How much time you want to spend with friends and families and at work or with yourself? That's all your philosophies. There is nothing wrong, nothing right. But you need to be very clear. So just try to understand that in this approach of developing a personal brand, we are talking about starting with ourself, because that's a very clear start, the very strong start. So not only your values and beliefs, but your philosophies. How do you see the world? What is wrong, what is right for you, and what you like, what you believe is right, then you stick to it very strongly, very clearly. For example, work life balance is a very live debate or a struggle for many people. I have a very clear point of view. My point of view is that work life balance does not exist. It's a very appealing idea. A lot of professionals chase it, run behind it, try to get it, but they never get it, and they get frustrated. I am very much sold on the idea of work life integration. Now, these are not two opposing forces that you have a choice like work life balance or work life integration. If you truly understand work life integration, this is actually work life balance through work life integration, because you cannot really split your work and your personal life. We have one integrated life, one integrated personality, so we need to look at the life in a whole. And I have very strongly advocated about this idea because I believe into it. Now, the point I'm trying to explain here, that if you do not have a fundamental belief in any idea, you would be sound very weak to really defending or really supporting that idea. But if you have fundamental belief into something, it comes very strongly. This is a natural way of really exposing your personality, who you are, what your beliefs, what your values, what you believe, what you do not believe, what are your life philosophies, and talking about it. So when you, in the communication science, when you talk or you speak, experts say that there are only 7% impact related to the words. The remaining is related to the emotions in your voice, in your body language, your gesture, the way you are delivering the things. And those things you cannot make up. Those things come naturally with your values and your belief in your mind. They are internal. So look at this picture. Now, this is actually demonstrating the whole life of Steve Jobs during his active tenure as a corporate leader. Now look, what is this brand? Some people think that branding is really, personal branding is about branded clothes, Rolex watch, size of the car, size of the house that demonstrate your brand. Now, for genuine leader like Steve Jobs, doesn't matter. He started to wear very casual dress in the corporate environment, and so consistently he had no problem meeting to the very senior political leaders in the same dress. That casual dress became his brand. So you have a personal power, that with a personal power, with your belief, if you consistently do something, even it is contrary to the social norms, it becomes your brand. So this casual dress became Steve Jobs' brand, and such a strong brand that now the younger leaders like Zuckerberg, they follow the same style. It became his brand as well. So this is just an example to show that what you believe strongly in, fundamentally in your heart, in your mind, that becomes your identity and your brand. So here is my framework of personal brand. I want to explain to you. So let's start from the bottom. So what is your personal brand? It comes from two areas. It comes from your competency, your capability, your skills, and your character, the way you deal with the people, deal with life. So competency is a combination of two things. Competency is comes from your knowledge and your skill set. Now, knowledge is like you are listening to my lecture, right? And you are passively listening, and you are getting that information is moving into your mind, in your brain, and being stored in somewhere in your memory, right? That is creating and building up your knowledge. Skills is the use of that knowledge. Now, it's very important for you to understand this very clearly, knowledge and skills, because most of the professionals today are all the time spending time building up their knowledge, training after training, video after video. book after book, lecture after lecture. They are just receiving knowledge and storing in their memory devices, not really using it or applying it. Now that knowledge is already piling up. It is becoming a burden on them because they build up the knowledge and they misunderstand that this knowledge is basically developing skills. It's not, unless you apply it. Unless you use that knowledge, it's not your skills. Skills, you have to practice it, you have to apply it, only then it becomes your skills. So most of the people are in the business of really developing, even piling up their knowledge, and not spending much time to develop or create the skills. But anyway, they develop certain level of competency, which is a lot of knowledge, no skills. Because another difference between knowledge and skill is knowledge is up to you. Knowledge, only you know how much knowledge you have. You only demonstrate your knowledge by your skills. So when you start speaking about it, about your knowledge, that becomes a skill. When you guide other people, when you work with other people using your knowledge, that becomes your skill. So if the people are not using their skill, it's all of their knowledge. So their competency, which is observed by other people, is basically their knowledge, and they are not sharing the knowledge. So even the competency is not fully known by other people, that how much knowledgeable they are. But anyway, based on your competency, you create your results, and that becomes a very important component of your reputation, how other people see you, your results, and your competency, right? That's one side of the personal brand. On the other side, it starts with your values and your integrity, and of course, your core identity and your life purpose and who you are. That forms your character. Again, character is something people observe in you based on your acts, based on your talk, based on what you say, what you do. And that character help you to establish a relationship with the people, because people, if they see that you are a person of high integrity, they like you. They want to build relationship with you. So end of the day, it's your competency and your character which forms your brand through results and through your relationship. Now, in between these, so there are few things input in this chart. So your knowledge, your skill, your values, your integrity, these are your inputs into the personal brand. Your competency, your character, your results, your relationship are the outputs, which ultimately create outcome of your reputation or your personal brand, right? Now, in between the inputs and output, there is communication. Your communication is the bridge between your inputs and your outputs. Because if you don't do the communication, not much results would be visible, not much relationship would be established, not other people will know. Communication is the only vehicle through which you communicate, deal with the world. If there is no communication, you are cut off from the world. And this is what most people basically face every day. They don't much communicate, but they think they are part of the world. They are actually cut off because they are not able to communicate their knowledge and demonstrate their skills or values or integrity. How the world would know about you? The only way to let the world know what you bring to the table is your communication. And most people are not good at communication. Not the formal communication, even the casual, informal communication, they are not good at. So when we talk about your perceived value or your reputation or your personal brand, communication plays a major critical role in creating that impression, that perceived value in the mind of other. Because otherwise they don't have the opportunity. They don't have the time to really look into your credentials, checking your certificates and degrees, watching you or studying your biography. They don't have time for this. World has no interest in you. It is your fundamental responsibility to make yourself interesting to other people, to find opportunity. And the best way to create interest for other people is communicate. Now, sometimes you get the formal opportunities like job interview where people are willing to listen. Actually, I love job interview process because nowhere in other circumstances, nobody is really interested to listen to you except the job interview where someone is senior level is available to listen to you carefully for 1 hour, 1 full hour. This is your opportunity. But life is not about the job interviews. Every day we live our life, right? Every day we live life, and every day we have to create opportunities to let the world know what we bring to the table, to create opportunities for us. So this is the framework. Now, as I said, for most people, they just jump on the personal branding things. They don't know what their values are, what their integrity characters are, or they don't worry about relationship. They don't have much skills or competence, don't know about the results, but they jump on the personal brand. That's a very fake personal brand that doesn't last much. In order to create a real, fundamental, very true, honest personal brand, you need to work through this process. There is no shortcut. There is no shortcut. It takes some time, but once you go through the process, you create a very powerful brand. What really matters to create or manage or survive a good brand is your communication skills. Now, communication skills, in a way, if we look from a personal point of view, nobody has any problem. We started to speak from early in life, 3-4 years of age, and we are almost communicating fully. And we are at any time of our life, we are very comfortable sitting with our close family and close friends. No problem at all, absolutely, with communication. But what happens in a work environment, because there are formalities, there are standards, there are other people who observe, we struggle. We struggle with that formal communication. Otherwise, communication is not a problem. So if you are not good at communication in the work, you are paying a price for it. Because maybe you have a good brand, but you are not able to communicate it. So it's not about the personal brand, it's about your ability to communicate that brand. And that is why it is said that why bad things happen to good people. That's the reason. There are people with very strong, sort of perfect personal brand. World doesn't know about them because they cannot communicate their brand properly. So how do you communicate your brand? Let's go a little deeper into this philosophy. We have 4 aspects or 4 dimensions of our personality. Many people think there are 2, but actually there are 4. So physical, mental are the 2 common things, but there are also social, emotional, and spiritual. Now let's see, differentiate the people. So let's take the very successful people in corporate. These are the CEOs of Fortune 500 companies. And do you know how much average salary is for a CEO of Fortune 500 company? It's 11.5 million. 11.5 million is the average salary for an Fortune 500 company CEO. And don't look at your own salary yet. What is the hourly rate they are paid based on this salary? Their hourly rate of Fortune 500 CEO is paid is $7,750 per hour. Per hour. Now look at your hourly rate you earn. And then ask a big question, why they are paid so much? What is the difference? So let's look at the different aspect by aspect. So physically, they are the same people as we are, right? We are all somewhere between 5 to 7 foot of height. We have certain weight. We have 2 hands, 2 feet. There is no extraordinary physical capabilities for those people to be paid for that, right? So physical is out. What about mental? Look like that they are very genius people, very intelligent, highly intelligent compared to us, the people who are in the lower category. Is that true? Well, there is a measure to check the mental or capabilities, IQ level. There are very reliable tests you can check the IQ score. An IQ score of there are studies of a Fortune 500 CEO is somewhere 120, 125 compared to the average score of 110 to 115. Not big difference. So they cannot be paid that much for that difference. So what is left? Social, emotional, and spiritual. Let's look at that. Now, spiritual, not many people go to that level, but let's look at the social, emotional. Social, emotional is related to the emotional intelligence, actually. It is based on your capability in the emotional intelligence, and this is related to working with people, dealing with people. Unfortunately, first half of our life, until we turn 2025, we spend learning education and developing ourselves for the practical life. And then we start our career somewhere like plus minus 25 years of age. Unfortunately, we are never taught about emotional intelligence. The only thing we need to learn to deal with people, we are not taught. And in the second half of our life, when we start our career, we need to work with people. In the first half, when we are educating ourselves, maybe it's not necessary. We do have friends, but we are not required to work with friends. In the second half, when you start your career or business, you are required to work with people. It is essential, it is required. And most people don't know how to work with people because they are not taught about it. Now, some lucky ones who are God gifted, they make good progress, but many people struggle, right? So, what is their skills in this area for Fortune 500 company CEO? Well, they work with a lot of people. They have their responsibility for thousands and thousands of people to be led by them. So probably that is an area where they have really high capability. And some of the celebrity CEOs of Fortune 500, like Tim Cook, they make 300 million a year. 300 million. Now think of this. Their salary is decided by the shareholders or the board of directors of those companies, who are not stupid people. They are very wise people. And they're actually very specialized in the wealth and money management. So they cannot throw their money away like this. There must be a reason. So they have a lot of scrutiny to decide those salaries, and their salaries are paid very carefully. No wonder Tim Cook is paid $300 million annually happily, because he has increased the value of the company in the last few years by $2 trillion. $2 trillion. Shareholders are extremely happy. So Tim Cook has developed a personal image, personal brand, by demonstrating his capability, by demonstrating his character, by demonstrating his results. And based on that capability, based on that perceived value the shareholders and board of directors has created, he is rewarded for that part. What is your reputation? What is your personal brand? What is your image? Could you earn that much salary? Of course you can. But you need to convince people that you have the same capability. And not necessarily that we really need that level of capacity or capability, but maybe we deserve a little more than what we are earning today. If you're earning $50, $60, maybe we can earn $500. That still makes a lot of sense with our capability. Or can you double what you're earning? Can you triple? Can you make it 5 times? Of course you can. And you should. Number one factor for other people, because we have to work with the people. We cannot alone earn what we deserve. We need to work with people. We need to convince people that we bring value to the table. We are valuable. To convince that is a starting point. Once you convince that, people would be willing to reward you, and you have the opportunity to create value. So in this picture you are looking at, it's not about your physical or mental or anything else. It's about social emotional. Social emotional, take it as your ability to work with the people. Your communication skills, your ability to deal with the people is part of emotional social. For example, you get inspired through this webinar and you said, okay, Salim has talked very wisely. Let me work on my personal brand. And in this picture, you are looking at your screen. Where is your personal brand? Your personal brand is the top of the cliff. It's visible. Your performance, your behavior, people see that, and that becomes your personal brand. But how your behavior and performance is determined or driven is driven by a lot of things inside you. Your thinking, your emotions, your attitude, your values, your emotional intelligence. All these things are hidden. They're part of your inherent personality. These are the driving forces. When you behave the way you behave, it is being driven from internal side. So even if you change your behavior without working on your values and your core identity, it doesn't work. So rather than creating a fake brand by taking external pressure and say that, I really need to behave like this, which is not real, let me look back into my insight and see that what are the values. If my behavior is not desirable currently, why is I'm driving that behavior? What is the reason? Maybe there are some life experiences which hurt me. Because of that, my behavior is not good. But whatever it is, let's go a little inside and find out and try to change those values. Once you change your thinking, but you change your thoughts and your values, your behavior changes, isn't it? So rather than taking a pressure that really I need to perform or behave like this for my personal brand, no, you find out your identity and you become who you are. That also takes out a lot of pressure from you. People of the Fortune 500 companies are not faking up their brand. They are real leaders. So how does it work? You have values, right? There are certain values. For example, you have a value that my family is very important. My family is important than anything else. That could be a value that leads into belief of certain ideas. And that values and belief results in your attitude or your behavior or your action. So it's not isolated. Your behavior on the surface is not isolated, it's being driven from inside. So if you want to change your behavior, change your habits, change your values and belief. People are at different level of identity or their perception about themselves. This is a very powerful chart. Pay attention here. So there are three layers in this circle. Outer layer is your appearance. When you meet people and look at you and they make a comment that you look smart, you have reduced weights, and you take it as that yes, the world is really admiring me, the world is impressed by me. That's the outer layer. That's the lowest level of identity clarification for you. Second level of your understanding the identity is that based on your performance. So when people make a remark that you look smart, your inner voice says that yes, because I work hard, I'm working every day on my body. The third level is when people look at that and say that you look smart, you basically smile and you say, yes, this is what who am I. It's not about your appearance, it's not about your habits, what you do. It's just who you are. That is the power of identity. You don't relate it to the external observation of the people or what you do, what you do not do. That's what who you are. So find out what is your identity, who you are, and all other things would become very easy. So let me change a little bit. Left brain, right brain. We all understand that left brain is more like logical, sequential, rational, analytical, and right brain is more random, intuitive, holistic. So we all the time work with right brain or left brain. The only problem is that we are very conscious with our left brain. We always think we are conscious, we are logical, we are rational. Even if we make some emotional decisions, like in a situation you are very emotional, you think you are rational, you think you are logical. Experts tell us that most of the buying decisions made by people are basically emotional decisions. We think it's rational decisions. So all other people use their emotions to buy things, but I'm not. I'm not an emotional buyer. I'm a logical person. This is what we feel. So that's the trap we encounter, that we all the time think we are logical, whereas we may be emotional. Now, logical is of course good, but emotional is good and bad. Let's take example. Everybody agrees that they need to go to gym, need to quit smoking. That is their logical brain, right? No problem agreeing to that. But when it comes to going gym, it becomes a challenge because you make a commitment based on your rational thinking that yes, I need to go to gym. I'll go from tomorrow morning. Tomorrow morning comes, and now it's not your logical brain, it's your right brain, emotional brain, which says that look, I'm a little tired, or maybe I'm doing some dieting. Maybe I'll go from tomorrow, or maybe I'll go next week, or maybe I could rely on dieting rather than really going to gym. Those type of arguments. That's not your logical brain. That's your emotional brain. As I said, you think you are thinking logically, but that's your emotional brain. Similarly, emotional brain in some situations may also empower you. With your emotion, you can do whatever you needed to secure or safeguard your family. That's the power of the emotion. Imagine yourself, the picture you are looking at, the giant elephant and a tiny rider on it. Think of this as that you, the rider on the top is you yourself. And you are there with your logical mind, because logical mind is always with us. So you are at the top of the element with your logical mind, and this giant elephant, consider that is your emotional brain, emotional mind. And you could control your logical brain all the time. Can you control your emotional brain, emotional mind all the time? Well, sometimes you can, sometimes you cannot. If that giant elephant would not let you become helpless. You can't do much. Or you need to get up at 6 a.m. in the morning to go to the work. And you could do that on a weekday, but on a weekend, for any reason, this giant elephant does not let you do that. But imagine if that elephant, if the giant elephant is in your control, it can do wonder for you. It is so powerful. So between left brain and right brain, left brain we think is logical, rational, but right brain, which is emotional, is good and bad. If you could control it, it could do wonder for you. If you cannot control it, it may harm you. So these are the things are important to understand to manage and develop habits or change habits. What we are talking about, I want to create keep the context again, so we don't feel that we are distracted. We are talking about maintaining, surviving, and establishing our personal brand. And personal brand is what we say, what we do. Habits are a big part of your communication. So communication does not mean that you all the time have to verbally say who you are, what your personal brand. People are smart enough to observe your personal brand by your habits, the way you act, the way you react to certain things, right? So big part of managing and maintaining your personal brand is controlling your habits, controlling yourself, what you say, what you should not say, what you do, what you should not do, right? Many times, because of the emotion nature of the emotional brain, we become out of control or we cannot control ourselves. In those situations, this is from Stephen Covey of Seven Habits. He says that this is a framework that anything happens when you respond, there is a small space in between stimulus, why it is a trigger, good or bad, and based on that trigger, you respond. So, for example, someone say you are stupid and you get annoyed. Now, how do you respond to it? There is a space between what the person said and what you want to reply back. That is your freedom to choose. It's a very little space, but according to that philosophy, you have a freedom to choose. Let's see how does it work. So pay attention here. This is very interesting and very relevant as well. So how do we behave or how do we react physically, verbally? Trigger is the something you listen, hear, something you see, someone says something, and that trigger activates our thinking process. So that idea or thought which we observe or see comes into our brain, and it goes through a filtration. So deletion, distortion, faulty thinking, it goes through checking our meaning of belief, values, identity, our motivation, ego, life experiences, our memory, history file, etc., right? The whole process it goes through. So it goes through emotions, expressions, warning lights, and then at the bottom you see it gives us a choice. After processing all that information, it gives us a choice based on the rules and priorities and logic. And then you see that at the bottom, the action reaction, we take the action. Now, all this process happens in a split of a second, but that's a process. That trigger, which is an word someone said or thought we thought, or the action we saw, triggered some thought process, and thought process goes through this long process, and ultimately we result in action and reaction, right? In some situations which are emotional situations, the trigger is so strong that it bypasses the whole process of thinking. So you see on the left side there is a direct shortcut between red circle, triangle, and action. That what happens when we are triggered emotionally very quickly in a bad manner, and then we lose our ability to think wisely or think logically, because the brain makes a shortcut. Brain doesn't go to checking our values and all these rationality through our brain. It makes a shortcut. Now you must have observed or seen the big politicians physically fighting on national TV, live national TV, right? How did it happen? Those are smart people, those are wise people, But in those moments, they lost control of their brain. Their brain made a shortcut. The triggers made a shortcut, and they were not able to really think logically. By simply knowing this process, it gives you empowerment that if next time this is going to happen, at least you have awareness how to control yourself, because you know that this is the mechanism of the brain functionality. It's not your fault, but you can control it. The model of developing your habits or your changing your habits is this. This is called Dils model. It's a very powerful model. So let me explain you quickly through a very common example. Let's say that I'm working in some work environment and I don't like my boss. So I'm really upset and I think I'm at the wrong place. I need to change job. I'm impacted by the environment. If environment is not really good for me, I feel bad about that. So that's the first level of where we are. In order to change that situation, what I could do is to really change my behavior, to see things differently, action and reaction. So first you just receive the impact from the environment. In the second level of your ability to change the habits, you try to react with change behavior or change actions or reactions. If it still does not change, your boss, even if you tried, your boss is still bad, then you could think that, look, maybe I need to develop some skills or capabilities. You are at one place working for a working company. You got fed up with your boss behavior. You decided to change and you moved to another company, right? You were triggered by environment. And in the second company, you again find the same example. The boss was not good. At that moment, you started to think that maybe it's my way how I deal with the boss, right? I need to look at my own behavior. It doesn't change, it's still the behavior of the boss. Then you one level up, you will think about learning something. That maybe I need to learn and develop some capabilities. It still doesn't work. Then you will be thinking about of changing your values and belief. Maybe I need to see bosses as human, as good humans rather than bad people. Or ultimately you will change your identity, your role, that this is what who I am. I'm a good professional. I can work with any type of people, good or bad. I have the capability of really surviving in any bad negative environment. That becomes your identity. The good thing is when you reach to that level where you are able to define your identity and clarify your identity, everything else has taken care. If you are able to identify a new reality, new role for you, then your values and beliefs, your skills, your behaviors, your environmental all changes automatically. That's the power of it. So if you go back to the earlier model, like identifying who you are and your values, belief, it becomes very powerful and it may cut short on all other things. People ask me every day that, look, my work environment is bad or my boss is really nasty. What should I do? And I said that, look, do you have a choice? Can you change the job? Say that I want to change, but I cannot because it's not easy. I said, okay, you want to continue. If you want to continue, then convince yourself that when you join this company, you made an agreement with the employer that you will be working in a certain system in an organization, right? And your boss is part of that system. You need to accept it. If you do not want to work with that person, leave the job immediately. But if you want to continue working, it's part of your professional agreement and commitment to work with that person. Now, that person is good or bad, that's not your problem. That's a problem of your boss of the boss to take care of that person. But you should have professionally the ability and capacity to work with a nasty person in an organization as long as that person is part of the organization, right? That's a mindset. So you create an identity. Yes, I am a professional and I have the capacity and capability to work with that person. That becomes your brand. I'll give you a quick example from my personal life. So you see two cars here. One is Maruti 800 on the left side and then Land Cruiser. Maruti was my first car. Long time ago, I bought this car very small, but for me, this was my first car. I loved it and I really enjoyed it. And at that time, I started to question that why people spend so much money on big cars, because this car, Suzuki could do anything from taking you from one distance to another distance. Anyway, I enjoyed it. Later on, when I was working, long time after, when I was working in Saudi Arabia, I had this long Land Cruiser VXR, 5.8 liter, 8 cylinders or 12 cylinders. I really enjoyed that car as well. But by that time, I had references. I could refer. When I had Suzuki or Maruti, I did not have any reference. By the time I was driving Land Cruiser, I have references. I could see that how comfortable this Land Cruiser is, how comfortably this goes through the rocks, and you even don't feel it, right? It started to give me a feeling that, look, this car is much more comfortable. And Suzuki used to make a lot of noise. With a small bump on the road, it would make a lot of noise, make the life difficult for the driver. And I started to relate it to the people. And then I said, look, there are some people like Suzuki and Maruti. If there is a small problem, they make big noise, right? They are Suzuki or Maruti 800. And then there are people who are very deep, very absorbing, big problems, big tragedies, and they stand like a rock, like a mountain, right? They are Land Cruiser. And this analogy hit me so much that I started to see myself and I said, am I a Maruti or am I a Land Cruiser? And it's funny, childish to really relate yourself as a car model, but it worked very well for me. And at that time, I started to reinforce that thinking, no, I'm Land Cruiser VXR 5.8. I could absorb any shock. I could deal with any person. That really strengthened me a lot. I was working in Saudi Arabia at that time. And you can imagine that I went to Saudi Arabia after spending 18 years in USA. So I was really spoiled in 18 years of having a different culture and work. And then Saudi Arabia, I think all of you are very familiar. So all those nasty things over there, I did not have much problem because I saw myself, I saw my identity very differently. And I survived. Rather, I enjoyed that tenure. So there is a power in you. If you could identify that power, that origin, even if you have to relate yourself to a powerful car, but if it works closely in your heart, it creates a very powerful understanding or branding for you as well as for the world. They started to see you the same way. So changing habits is not easy. As I said, that there are different tricks and tools and techniques available. The one trick or technique I shared with you, that how do you really relate yourself using metaphors. If you could use a metaphor, it could work very well. The only thing is you need to really believe into it. Don't laugh on yourself. It worked so well for me that I started to share that story with other people. Some people laugh that why do you consider yourself a Suzuki or Land Cruiser, but it worked very well for me. So I keep sharing that story. So changing habits takes time. And one powerful idea. So what really requires to change habits? Of course, you have to have knowledge. It's very easy to understand and learn science. There is always a science behind any idea. I should go to gym, you should go to gym. There is a science. I understand that very well. No problem with that. Desire? Yes, I do have a desire. There is a skill. A skill only happens when you start to go, developing the habits. So the main part of the habit development is a skill. When you start to do something, it will start to get better. Now think of when you first time start learning driving. So you started driving. First day it was very uncomfortable. You thought that driving a car is very difficult, very complicated, that you need to control so many things at the same time. But you consistently continue to learn. And in 3-4 weeks, it becomes easier. In 2 months, you were driving perfectly, right? Why it happened? Because you are practicing those skills. And with practice, skills becomes easier. Now, there is a science which is called the brain plasticity. The idea of brain plasticity is that in our brain there are billions of neural pathways, and those neural pathways keep changing. When we get some new information, when we see something new, when we do something new, those neural pathways start changing. And if we continue to do those things, they reform, they change their positions. And if they are change their positions appropriately, that change takes place to make things easier for us. So when you first time you started driving, it was difficult because your brain was not used to it. But when you continue to do it, the neural pathways started to change and make adjustments. And in a couple of weeks, they readjust it. And that is how that skill become easier for you. Now in 2-3 months, you are driving very comfortably without even thinking about it, right? Behind every habit, this mechanism works. When you start learning a musical instrument, you go through the same process. You start learn dancing, go through the same process. But keep in mind that, look, your brain has the capacity and capability to change its neural waves based on your action. You need to first force yourself. If you first force yourself to go to gym, it would be difficult, but second day, second week, third week, fourth week, it started to become easier. So use that. Simply by knowing this way of working for the brain empowers you. Next time you want to change habits, think of the neuroplasticity and it would feel easier for you. So relationship is also very powerful. Relationship basically enhances our communication. Imagine when you are communicating with someone who is, you have a good relationship, like your family members, your close friends, and when you're talking or communicating with someone where you do not have good relationship. So good relationship is key. Now, this is a survey from some organization who did the perception of the people. How do they see other people at work? So this survey says that real friends, if you really, there are people who really you feel like real friend, only 15%. Co-workers, 41% majority. They just see them as co-workers. And only at work friends, 20%, and 2% as enemies. But think of this, only 15% as real friends. Now, why? It's controversial. Some people don't believe that we should have friends at work. I'm a big advocate of really having friends at work. We spend the best part of our life, the quality time, right? We give more time to the workplace than we give to the family. And we are emotional beings. We have ups and downs. There are times we are emotionally upset. There are times other people need our help. So it doesn't hurt. It's basically very supportive to have few people, not everyone, few people as our close friends. So when we are under pressure, we could go them and share our worries and stress with them. So that would really help us to maintain a positive social being at the work environment. Relationship, in my opinion, is the vehicle on which you ride your career journey. It's not required, but if you develop it, it helps you a lot, because relationship leads to liking and disliking. Actually, liking. One tricky question I ask many times to the senior executives that, have you ever hired a person you didn't like? And answer is always no. Now, it should be possible that if liking, disliking is not really the criteria, they should be able to hire a person they didn't like, but the person was fully qualified for the job. But always, 99.9% of the time, the hiring decision or any decision involves our liking and disliking as well. Relationship, 99.9% creates liking. So when other people like you, they make decision or they make favors in favor of you. What's wrong in it, right? So relationship is really empowerment. Passes. Final thing I would suggest to look into yourself, because we are talking of really creating a self, which is becomes your very powerful, strong brand. Your ego. Our ego is our heaviest weight. We don't realize. Now realize that your ego is not you. It's something separate from you, but it dominates you, right? In an emotional situation, we lose control of our ego. But ego is not us. Ego is triggered based on the external events. A big ego feed other big egos. When you are in a situation where there are people with big egos, be very careful, because their egos are feeding your ego and your ego becomes out of control. So the best way of controlling ego is that when, especially in the work environment, leave your ego behind. Don't worry about ego. Just keep your dignity. It's very difficult to identify the difference between dignity and ego. But if you keep dignity, you would not mind your ego at all. You cannot leave both. You need to keep dignity, because dignity fills the place of ego very well. And you take pride. For example, a person with a dominating ego may have a lot of difficulty asking for forgiveness to someone for any reason. If you have a high level of dignity, you will feel proud asking for forgiveness. That's a dignity. So check your ego. As I said, it's not about you. It's part of you, but it dominates you. Based on what I have shared with you, this is what we do in our strategic CFO program. We try to create exercises and the type of the curriculum where you change your identity or develop your identity. So one of the very powerful exercise of really creating your identity is the visioning exercise. I'm not sure if anybody has done it, but I'm not asking you to do it now. I'm just sharing with you what is this type. So in this visioning exercise, we ask them to do a mental or thinking process. Look at the last 10 years of your life. What would you do different if given a chance to relive? Where would you be today? Now, in most of the cases or all the cases, it is always you think that you could have done more. You didn't do actually in last 10 years, but you believe that you could have done more or you would do more if you are given a chance again, right? Okay, last 10 years is gone. What about next 10 years? Can you apply that in next 10 years? Very powerful. Identify your three deepest values. Identify your top three strengths. Part of the exercise. Then you move into the second part of the vision exercise and assume that jumping to the end of your life, what are the three most important lessons you have learned and why are they so critical? This helps you to understand what really you value, what is relevant, what is important for you, what is not important for you. Then think of someone that you deeply respect, your role models. Describe three qualities that you most admire about this person that help you identify what you care, who you are at your best, trying to find your identity. And finally, a very powerful question: what is the one sentence inscription you would like to see on your tombstone, your grave actually, that captures who you really were in your life? How would you like to see after you are gone, how the world really remembers you? You could see that maybe you will see something like, this is the person who always cared about their family, or this is the person always available for help, something like this. So this is also gives you in your life an idea how you want to see other people remember you. So we do this exercise practically. So just to give you some flavor of the strategic CFO program, we are starting in 2 weeks, the 13th batch actually, 13th. So there are almost 500 people have qualified from that. We are doing 2 batches every year, one in the middle of the year, one in the beginning of the year. So 13 batch. And it's not about the CFO only. It's a very strong leadership program. It changes your life, not only your career, changes your life. So in this, there are three components of the strategic CFO program: leadership, strategy, and technology. And what I'm sharing with you is related to the leadership. Because without leadership, anything you learn on technology and strategy is waste. Strategy and technology is only part of the knowledge you develop. To apply those knowledge, you need leadership. And leadership involves the communication, dealing with the people, emotional intelligence, etc. Things like that. So to create a very strong brand and give you confidence, this is the exercise which we actually go through in peer groups, and that is how people create their clarity and identity to deal with other people. So this is actually the way we do the strategic CFO program, and this is exactly how do you create a very strong brand. So that's why I brought this slide here. Let's start from the bottom. So this program has different components. This program has strategy modules. So we have 12 modules of a strategy. We go through them month by month by month. The 12-month program. Then we have 12 modules of technology. Both of these modules is basically knowledge. You gain knowledge. Strategy modules, technology modules, and they are taught through my live coaching sessions. The result is that through these modules and the live coaching sessions, you develop deep business insight. Deep business insight, not only about business, but a deep business insight. So that's a one part. Then you have peer groups. Peer groups, we create small groups like 5-6 people in a group. And they meet every other week on their own. And these are the interactive sessions. That is where you develop your communication skills. That is where you interact with each other. That is where you develop your level of comfort with the people when you meet every week. And there they develop the ability to strategic thinking. Now, one of the very important part is not just talking and communicating and interacting. is about sharing ideas. So all the very intense concepts of you're learning from strategy and technology, you basically use those ideas and thoughts here in the interactive way with a peer group, which started to give you the ability to think strategically. Third part is we are doing many Harvard case studies now. So we have access to the Harvard core library and leadership modules. So this part is knowledge based, this part is skill based. Based on the leadership modules and case studies, there are assignments given to the peer groups, and that leads to the leadership execution. Now think of the three components at the top. When you have strategic thinking, when you have deep business insight, and when you have the comfort to work with the people and communication ability, that leads to your ability to strategic conversations, not conversation, strategic conversation. And that is the way to really promote your brand, communicate your brand, establish your brand, and maintain your brand, and let the people see what you bring to the table. That is why I show this slide, that this is the process. You cannot develop this capability in the top box directly. No way. It's a very cumbersome process. And that is why we do for 12 months. 12 months after you do this consistently, then you see change. So this is the 5th year of this program, still going on. And now we have started to see results. Last week, I received a call from one of the alumni. He was based in London. And he called me that he got a new CFO role, group CFO role in a large organization. And he was so excited. He said that, look, I copied your script ditto, how to appear in the interview, how to really apply for the process. And that is how I got this job. He was very grateful. So we have now started to see, of course, he spent 12 months and then practice afterwards. But the way he developed the confidence, the way he created his personal brand, that was the reason for other people to really identify him as a potential candidate and then test him through interviews, interactions, and finally offering the job. So whether you want to do it yourself or through this program, this is the model. This is what you need to replicate. I'm sharing this model with you. If you cannot come to this program, then try to do yourself, but don't try to make a shortcut. Time is running out. Time is running out. You are already where you are, right? Years are passing by like months and weeks. So your time is running out. Whatever you want to do it now. Because if you delay it, your return on your effort or investment would be reduced, because our life is determined to end somewhere. Earlier means that you would have more part remainder in your life to enjoy. If you delay it, you have shorter and shorter time to make return on it. So that's my final message.
I got a new role while attending the MECA CFO program. I got a C-suite role as a CFO. So even before getting to the end of the program, I actually got my return on investment. Very profound.
This helps me in building up a very good rapport with the management also, because I'm able to talk with them on strategy as well as business. So the management is also very impressed, and in fact it is helping him a lot in my career.
Since I joined MECA CFO Academy, so it has helped me grow professionally, and I'm seen as a different person within my own organization as well. So after joining this program, I think from financial controller, they've moved me to a regional commercial manager role because of that different strategic thinking, because it makes a difference when you are really only crunching the numbers and when you become a different strategic partner to your organization. So that had really helped me to move within the organization.
I work for as a CFO, group CFO for the retail and FMCG business. I joined this MECA 2 years back, and today I'm attending the seminar. The best takeaway from this MECA Academy is, first one is networking. Okay. Second one is, previously I was in a different shell. I used to wear the controller's role. Though I am the CFO, I used to wear the controller's role, and I used to monitor where is the mistakes. But after attending this program, we are the CFOs. It's a part of the organization in the sense that it is a process. We are also stakeholders. So we are helping the organizations, not auditing the organizations. We are not questioning the organization. So this is what I learned.
I am associated with MECA since last 3 years. It has helped me understanding the core business strategy and the leadership and enhancing my knowledge in order to apply them to the real life scenario.
I'm holding multiple professional certifications, like from US, I'm qualified CPA, qualified chartered accountant from Australia. So I was really looking for something which can add value to my profession and where I can go, I can, get the position of C-level or a CFO. So what I feel was having those professional certifications is not going to help or get those designation. So really, since I joined MECA CFO Academy, so it has helped me grow professionally, and I'm seen as a different person within my own organization as well.
So actually, I found Salim Sufi's training extremely useful because he links the big picture together. Like how can you deliver value to the organization? What is the importance of strategy? How leadership works? And he has lots of practical examples and exercises. And how to build EQ. Because it's not just about numbers, it's not just about technology, it's how you bring everything together to get the best business value. So I'm really enjoying it, and I think with this we can serve our customer better.
Being a mid-level finance professional, I have always been thinking about going with the business schools, going with the CPA, going with other accountancy degrees. But then I realized when I came across with CFO Academy that that's not really what I should look for. That's not really what I need in order to be CFO, in order to be top-notch position in the finance department. What all I need is the strategy, leadership, and the soft qualities and the emotional intelligence, which has always been missing. So what I would highly recommend to the mid-level or the starter, mid-level finance professionals, don't really focus on the degrees, try to develop the soft qualities, try to develop your EQ, and try to have the knowledge of leadership and strategy. And I would highly recommend, that has changed my life, and I would definitely recommend others to go with the same mindset, to go with CFO Academy and try to move forward in your life.
As a leader and even as I rise up to the C-suite level, I've realized it's beyond even knowing the numbers. It's about strategy, it's about leadership, it's about bringing the different pieces together. And what MECA CFO has made me realize then, they are like-minded individuals like I, where we are able to consult on a fortnight basis, where we have a coach who is able then to guide us. And it's much more easier when someone is able to coach you.
These courses help me to develop my strategic thinking skills as well as developing my leadership skills. So I get a lot of ideas through this course, and I'm able to implement this in a practical way in my day-to-day work.
The strategy is the best part, and of course Salim Sufi Saab, he has so much of experience, and he gave the practical examples. He has given the Amazon, Google. It's a practical examples he has given. He has taken us through the process, so that what I did after this implementation is immediately I went and implemented the balanced scorecard. So that helped a lot. Even my owners also appreciated.
I've attended several programs, and I mean, from a practical point of view, and I'm stepping away from theory. I mean, your tips are very practical. There are things that one can apply on a daily basis. And one profound thing I learned is self-awareness. You know, in terms of applying your relationship, applying emotional intelligence, you know, in dealing with people, in solving problems, and building trust in people.
I see the program is really helpful since there are a lot of strategic and leadership on it. Plus, it's like every week there are live coaching from very successful CFO and coach like yourself. And I find very helpful for anybody who want to move from like technicality and controller position to CFO and business partner and strategic partner. I think it's very helpful. I'm trying to shorten my career path to go right away to the CFO role, and the program is very, very helpful for me.
In the hindsight, when I look at it, I would have begun much earlier. But having been in the last, couple of months, I would say I'm really gaining value in terms of now contributing to my organization from a strategic point of view, and also being able to coach my team, because it's not just about me, it's about also bringing out leaders. And it's something which I would recommend to many finance professionals and tell them, it's time to step up as finance people and be able to go to the next level of the game.
This Mecca Academy is a bit different than the other training organizations. In a sense, it has no gap in terms of theory and application to the real business world. So whenever you go to different trainers, and they're from mostly industry background, they're from the educational institutes, not from the industry background. But here we are learning from a person who is from industry background, who has spent his major portion of his life in the industry. So there is no gap in terms of the knowledge and the exposure to the business.